Shankaracharya Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punaha Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shanti 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 Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat. So we were doing the third sutra of the third chapter of the Siva Sutras, and the third chapter deals with the Anava Mala. Yesterday we discussed at length about malas or impurities as being of three kinds. One is Anava Mala, which is essentially a state of forgetfulness of one's own real nature. The second one is Maya Mala, where the mind tends to engage in other things which are not real. First is a kind of dissociation, a separation from one's purity, one's essential nature. Then all these diversities and dualities appear to be real. And then finally, the karma mala is subhasava basanatmaka abhilasha. I would like to do this. So it's like a student is sitting in a library and studying and deeply focused on the subject that he's dealing with. He comes out of the library. The moment he comes out, his mind is so dissociated. For lack of a good example, I'm taking this. And then he looks at different kinds of things people are playing. There is some activity in the college. And then after some time, you see he's already playing with some other students. So these are these three levels at which the mind, first thing is a wrong perception of the self, and then, slowly being outwardly moved with one's consciousness, then participating in whatever is going on. And these are kind of interlinked. One leads to another. So we're kind of done with it. There were a couple of things that I was mentioning. So what is this difference? And we were having a bit of difficulty when we were having the question answer session. How is it that when we kind of know when our essential nature is divine and pure, and its Chaitanya Swarupa is one of self-awareness, how come we suddenly become unaware? How come we suddenly become trapped in delusional self-perception and then engagement with an outer reality, which is again a illusory thing, and then we participate in it? How does that happen? Of course, it happens in dream state. We are right on our bed and then we get into the dream realm. We do a lot of things. But we are not in a dream state. We are in a waking state. Why does that happen? And then we are supposed to do a lot of sadhana to again push ourselves back into our real nature. And then we also discuss how different Shastrakaras and commentators with their insights have mentioned, do you know, ultimately all this is false. Bandha and moksha, bondage and liberation, both are conceptual, not real. Ultimately, real is only Parama Shiva Tattva. And that creates hell of a lot of problem because you are dealing with two radically different levels of realities and two different levels of conceptualization of this truth. One is at the level of the micro details that we are dealing with in our everyday life, where Papa Punya, these are real issues. Having a job, doing certain things, having relations, this is what we can see and can relate to. But they are talking about a very ultimate level of reality where all these kind of slowly become very fuzzy and they vanish from our awareness, from the platform of our consciousness. So these two radically different levels are the mother of a lot of confusion in our understanding of what the Siva Sutra is trying to do. We might think that it's making fun, it's oversimplifying things. No, it's not. They are not simplifying. They are giving us steps by step solutions. There is a point of time in our sadhana where we, of course, are dealing with our body. That is the third chapter all about. It's not Saktopaya, the minimum thing that we are doing, the Anavopaya. We're dealing with the physical seat. We are looking at our Annamaya Kosha and Manamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha. We are doing sadhana. But he's saying, even though you are doing all this, never lose heart that you're going to lose. Why? Because these are not real problems. These are certain formulations of the mind. There are certain ways in which you are trapped. The idea is to recognize your essential divine nature. And once you start recognizing your essential divine nature, the ghosts of the samsara, all these devils, these demonic forces, so called, which trouble us, will slowly lose their grip over us. So we are fighting a lot of devils, according to Siva Sutra, which per se don't exist, but they are frightening us. So that is what we were discussing. And this Bandha and Moksha, both in Advaita Vedanta and also in Shiva Sutra, is fundamentally one thing: to recognize the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is different from what is physical reality. Physical reality, we have a body. Ultimate reality, this body, and whatever is Nitya, that is ultimate reality. Body is not Nitya. We were there when it was born. We are there when it is sick. We are there when it is rich, when it is poor. That which persists and pervades everything, that Atma Tattva alone is real. That is what the Advaita Vedanta keeps telling us. And here, it's a little more subtle when it comes to sadhana thing, because they give us a lot of details regarding how we are trapped and how we can be liberated. And that is the interesting part of the Kashmiri Saivism and the tradition therein. So, what we did yesterday was that because all theologians will have to explain what is samsara, what is this phenomenal reality, our jobs, our relations, our names and forms we are dealing with. Here they're saying that this is like a drama of Lord Shiva. And the supreme divine power, Lord Shiva, which is represented everywhere, which is all pervasive, all of us are essentially that Parama Shiva, of its own choice, of its own volition, in its own dynamic wish, deteriorates, denigrates itself, devolves itself, put itself as if it is in bondage. It's very funny. It is like a mother, the baby is on the bed, and the mother thinks that the baby should be able to get off the bed and get back onto the bed on its own. The baby is not yet ready to do that. The mother puts the baby on the floor, encourages the baby to stand up and climb into the bed. Baby is struggling, and the baby belongs to the mother. The mother wouldn't like to hurt the baby, but the baby wants to see the baby. The mom wants to see the baby ascend to the bed. It's like Paramashiva, we're his creation, we are his shadows. He has created us, these images of himself, and then he's watching how these images of him, we are all his images, how we are recovering our pure divine nature. So we become Paramashiva again. He's watching it. It's like a piece of gold which is stained with mud, doesn't dazzle, and then that dazzles when you clean it up. Similarly, when we work on our consciousness and we remove these bondages, the Paramashiva Tattva, which is inherent, is going to shine. The issue is not whether the Paramashiva Tattva is there in us or not. No, that is settled by Shastra, it's there. Now, doubt is regarding when we are going to recover that, how we can recover that. That is all about our discussion. It's not about whether we are divine. Shastra says we are divine. Why we don't look like we are divine? Yes, that is what is the matter of sadhana, and that's what we are discussing in Siva Sutras. So he's saying, so this whole Srishti and this Vishwa, this whole creation and whole this material world is essentially a play. And because everything is a play, that we are trapped here, is it real? This is also like a part of the play. That will be liberated, that is also part of the play. It's like a person with a little intoxication. He talks about all kinds of stories and then he goes back. He's crying that I have lost all my money and all because somebody has given him some intoxicants. And then he is free from intoxication. He knows all his money is in safe hands. They are in the banks. There's no problem, no threat. In this whole drama was created. Similarly, we are trapped as part of a play. That is how one can say, why should God do it? There's no reason as to why God should do it. That is the nature of this whole reality. It unfolds like this. And then if we recognize our essential thing, we go back. We are not supposed to fight with Lord Shiva as to why he's doing it. These are also theological questions. Why should God trouble us? Why are we trapped here? What is the purpose of samsara? What is the whole game all about? Why does it happen? Why should a God, if there is one, will like to create this whole mess? What can be a purpose? These are very powerful theological questions with which a lot of thinkers, the theological thinkers, grapple with. But here they're giving a very simplistic answer saying that this is essentially part of the play. Don't have to wrestle with it. This is not what should concern us. What should concern us is what is our essential nature. So this whole creation in that sense, it's essentially one leaf of his magical way of manifesting things out of nothing. And this is just an appearance. Okay, and this is Maya Nama Saktihi Sivasya Sakti Matoho Avyatirekini. This Sakti, this magical power of Lord Shiva, this is Utpaladeva saying, this is not different from Lord Shiva. It's not something else non-Shiva like Brahman and Maya in Advaita Vedanta. Maya has no existence. It's just a kalpana. It's a theoretical tool. Heuristic tool, as they call it in philosophy. It is used to explain the samsara. It has no original existence of its own. It is neither sat nor asat. It's neither real nor unreal. It's anirvachaniya. Indescribable. That is what they say. Here he is saying Sakti Matur Avyatirekini Swarupa Gopanatmika Krida. It's like the mom dresses up as a tiger to frighten the baby and play with it. God has kind of hidden himself and making us cry that we are helpless human beings when essentially there is no difference between the supreme divinity which is present in all of us. Everything we see has the mark of the supreme divinity, and we are frightened, we are helpless, we are miserable essentially because we don't manage to somehow see that. That is what Shastra gives us confidence to accept that as a given. Don't have to worry about it. This is mentioned by the scriptures, you just accept it. Now, between this bandhana and mala, there is impurity, which is cause of bondage. How do we make sense of it? Because there are different schools of thought. So there is this sentence, Kevalam Parichinna Swasakti Vikasasya Aprathanam Eva Bandhakatva Prayayam Jivatvam. That is what we had read yesterday. That we have these contours of the body-mind complex in which that vast sky is in a small pot, it becomes pot sky. Similarly, this Paramashiva Tattva, within the contours, within the definition of our existence, micro-level existence, when it fails to reconnect itself, expand, and reunite with that Paramatatva of which this is kind of a devolution, that is Jivatva. Accepting our apparent state of affairs as it is, saying this is real, okay, then you are trapped. You are Jiva, you are Pashu, you are in bondage. And in order to reinforce it, they say, Malam Swakalpitam Swasmin Bandhaha Svecha Vibhavitaha. A very profound statement. This impurity is not real mala. It's not ultimately, fundamentally anything impure. If so, we will not be able to get rid of it. If it's like nuclear waste, we cannot get rid of it. It's not like that nuclear waste. So we are all the time trying to hide from it, control it, right? Otherwise, the radiation is going to hit us. It's nothing like that. This is a conceptual problem. Essentially, it's a game in our consciousness. Once we know and see through that game, our consciousness elevates itself. There malam swakalipitam swasmin bandha svecha vibhavitaha. So, there are these psychological problems, right? One of the problems is that a person has hypochondria. He has a fear of sickness. So he reads some books. You remember what we passed through during Corona? Somebody early morning gets up and picks up a cup of tea and then he drinks it, and then he has read that if you have Corona, then you're going to lose your taste buds, and then he's scared. He smells it. He thinks that I cannot smell it properly, then he gets frightened. Many people mostly given because of this fear, whether they had the disease or not. A lot of people give into fear. So here, that is what he's trying to say, that this whole thing, this bondage is swakalpita, is imagined by ourselves because of a certain way in which we are approaching it. And Lord Shiva, this is his creation. This is his own imagination. And we are playing a role in his imagination. This is very abstract. Remember that pure consciousness, this reality is an imagination of that consciousness. What is the closest good example we can give? Maybe dream. In the dream, you are on your bed, and then so much of reality comes and engulfs your consciousness. You also get scared, you get happy, and then when suddenly your sleep breaks, you lose sight of that dream reality. If it's a very pleasant dream, you sometimes miss it. You wish it had continued. You wanted to continue there. And sometimes if it's a very frightening dream, it's a traumatic dream, then it haunts you even if you have woken up. It changes you. You see that again and again sometimes. Even though they have nothing to do with reality, you were affected by it in reality. Maybe that could be one example. But this whole creation, this whole material world, the social, psychological layers and layers of realities that we are dealing with in our consciousness is like an imagination. It's not fundamentally real. By word Swakalpita, that the Paramashiva, with his own wish, because he has Swatantra Sakti, he can do that sovereign power. This is how it has become Swasmin Bandha Svecha Vibhavita. He has created it out of his own wish. And where is this bondage? There's a person sitting on a chair and I'm going to be hanged today. He believes it. Then he's crying. Instead of, he's created this whole thing himself. Then somebody comes and says, why are you doing this drama? No, but I'm going to be hanged today. So he's under some kind of a trauma because maybe he has schizophrenia or maybe he's thinking too much. So he has this fear. He has a lot of anxiety just thinking, somebody is chasing, somebody is going to kill me. You have all kinds of paranoias. It could be one of them. This paranoia or this delusional acceptance of our material reality as ultimately true is what is bondage. And at the root of it is our insufficiently aware consciousness, which is not being able to see its real nature, its essential nature. Now, Bhinna Vedya Jusam Mayamalam Vidyeswarascha te. So he's mentioning Vidya and Ishvara. And then what is this Maya Mala? These diversities and essentially the Vikalpatmaka Buddhi. That is the mother of these Mayamala. That is the Mayamala. That is at the root of it. So the Anava Mala is that Sankuchita Ahanta Abhimana. Even though your Swarupataha, Siva Eva, you think you are Jiva. You are saying, no, no, I am a helpless human being. That is the Anava Mala. And then Maya Mala. Then you are having that confused mind and is externally oriented, taking interest in false things as real. And then Subhasubha Vasana, that is the Karma Mala. Then there is a beautiful sentence there, which is mentioned here about Anava Mala. Swatantriya Hani Bodhasya Swatantriyasya Pyabodhata Vidhanava Malamidam Swaswarupa Pahanitaha. That is what we had done. We had already read it yesterday. There are two aspects to it: Apurna Manyata and Swatantriya Hani. So you have Swatantriya Hani, you lose your sovereignty, you lose awareness of yourself, and then you forget that you are actually sovereign. That's all happened to many of us during colonialism. Some external powers came and declared themselves to be the sovereign rulers of this country, and the people of this country accepted their superiority and subjected themselves to these foreign powers, considering them to be the sovereign. No, very difficult to accept it today, but that was historically true. And that is spiritually true about all of us, that we are subjecting ourselves to the interplay of forces at the level of these three gunas, whereas our ultimate nature, essential nature, is beyond the play of these three gunas, rajas, sattvas, and tamas. We are beyond these, but we accept, and then we are trapped in it. Then he's mentioning about Maya Malaha Bhinna Vidya Prathatraiva Mayakyam Janma Bhogadam. So, it's like you are born and then you'll get Sukha Dukha and all that is out of this Maya Mala. And what is Karma Malaha? Kartabhya Bodhe Karma tu Maya Saktiva Tat Trayam. And then you have a sense of duty. You want to do something. This is my duty. I have to do it. There is a word, just for lack of a good example, I'm taking this. You must have read about it a lot. There have a lot of cases where you have a deviant child or a deviant husband or a spouse or maybe a boss, but mostly within the family. And then somebody is a codependent. The other one is a narcissistic person who is an addict. And the codependent, you know what, could be a girl, could be a husband, could be brother, could be anything. So there is one deviant or narcissistic person. The other one is arranging his or her life around that narcissistic person or that toxic or that abusive person, because he thinks he cannot live without me. So somebody is an addict, and then the mother of that addict is all the time constantly, what will happen to my child if I don't support him? He has no sensitivity towards her. She's adjusting her life around him. Many times the wives, with regard to a husband, could be also a husband adjusting to his wife. But generally you have these victims are called codependents. But you are playing fodder, you're sort of playing fodder to sort of keep him going in a wrong way. You're not helping him recover his pure nature. You're becoming a party to what they say. He has a shadow self, and you are becoming a joint stock company to support his shadow, not his light side. You're funding his negative activities. You're funding his negative character with support and help because you don't want to correct it. So any spiritual counselor, any guru, mother, friend, lover, sister, brother, you should never be a partner to the dark side of another person. You know that's a dark side. You want to help the person recover from the dark side to the right side. You recognize, try to help him recover, remember, regain his light side, the right side, the perfect spiritual side. But if you want to get emotionally involved, that's a problem. Why am I mentioning this? All of us, this Maya Mala, Karma Mala, no, is kind of, we have become codependent to this so called presumed sick self that we are. You know, our goodness, our ability to think, our ability to feel, we are employing all that to fund whom? The Jiva. Is it fundamentally real? No. We are using all our resources presuming that we are a limited human being. And that limited human being needs to have a house and a car, he needs to be happy, he needs to go here, there, all that we are funding. Whereas actually the one we are trying to enrich, which is our ego, he is not real. The actuality and the reality are two different things. Really, the one we should be respecting is our essential nature, which doesn't need all this actually. We are trying to bring a lot of things for that ego self, which is fundamentally not there. Fundamentally not there. So the real spiritual self of us doesn't need many of the things we buy, many of the things we do, but we do it because of delusion, because we strongly believe this is relevant. That is how we can make sense of it. So he's saying that this is how all this game is going on. So Swanga Rupeshu Bhaveshu Pramata Kathyate Patihi Mayata Bhedishu Klesha Karmadi Kalusha Pashu. Same thing is Pashupati. When you have that Aishwarya Dasa of self-awareness, self-control, then you have this, you have that self-control. You are an enlightened being. When you are not in that self-awareness, then you become an animal. That's what all of us is mentioning. A couple of other statements which are very interesting. Like, for example, what is bondage and liberation in Kashmiri Saivism? In this tradition, they're saying, Yat tattvasya parigyanam sa mokhyah parameshataha. Tattva jnana itself is moksha karan, is liberation. Once you're aware of your pure nature, the impurities that haunt you down, chain you to a level of insufficiency and helplessness, they vanish because they are not real. Once a boy knows who he is, somebody is manipulating him. You cannot do this, do that. You must have seen a lot of movies where this kind of stories are shown, how people are psychologically manipulated. And then the healer or the guy who's trying to rescue that person out of that state of bondage, what does he do? He just tells him that, come on, he's not your boss. What are you scared of? Be yourself. Regain your real self. That's all. That is what he's saying. Yat tattvasya parigyanam. The knowledge, the awareness of that tattva, that Paramashiva tattva, Chaitanyam Atma, that we did in the first sutra. So much beautiful that he mentioned there. Parigyanam samokhyah parameshataha tat punnatvam prabuddhana. The person who is enlightened, and then with the light of that luminosity, that light of that awareness, they are Jivan Muktischa Sasmitaha. That is a life of complete liberation. Whenever we look at somebody, when we call him Jivana Mukta, we are essentially referring to what? Not to that fellow. We are referring to that Tattva Jnana which has happened in him. He represents that self-awareness and he's not tempered, restricted, limited by what's going on. He becomes a real witness self. In that context, he says, Eto bandha bimokyocha paramesha swarupataha navidyate navedohi tattvataha parameshwari. Now, this is Lord Shiva himself saying in Bodha Panchadasika. It's a very powerful, beautiful sentence, which should give us a lot of confidence. He's saying, look, Eto bandho bimokyocha, the bandha, the state of bondage and liberation, paramesha swarupataha. It's the Swarupa of Parameshwara. Because of this game of Maya, he's appearing as putting you in bondage, and then he's liberating you. Both are delusion. You are actually not different from Paramashiva. Na vidyete na bhedohi. Neither somebody gets separated, and then he's saying, nor there is actually anything called bheda or duality. Only non-dual reality is the only truth. The dualities and the diversities which trouble us, which we are trying to understand, paramarthata not there. Phenomenally, yes, it's there. We are dealing with it. We are studying physics, chemistry, computers, all everything. They are there, phenomenally there. Ultimately, beyond this, no, it's not there. Tattva Parameshwari. And then, similarly, Abhinava Gupta also sort of beautifully mentions Mokhyasya nayava kinchide dhamasti na chapi gamanam anyatra cha. There is nothing called a abode of freedom. No, it's not a physical location, nor is it a mental, psychological state that you will go and settle there. I'll go to US and settle there. I'll go to Japan and settle there. I'll go to Moksha Dhama and settle there. But there's no such Dhama that you can go and settle there. And no chapi gamanam anyatra. There's nothing that you're going to go somewhere from where you are. You be aware of your swarupa. That's liberation. Ajnana granthi vida swasakti avivaktata moksha. When you break vidyate hridaya granthis, when you actually remove that bondage, that knot of ignorance, you cut asunder the knot of ignorance, that is the bondage, source of bondage. You open it up, you throw it. Then, like a puzzle, you are trying to do it, there's nothing real about it. Now just look at it. You are given a bundle of thread and you open it, and suddenly there's a knot. In reality, the thread is there. It's just one thread, and suddenly gets knotted. And after some time, and you open it and you get the thread. You do a lot of hard work, don't you? We do a lot of hard work to deal with puzzles, to deal with these knots. Similarly, it's essentially a faulty understanding, and the whole awareness gets knotted. We just have to sort it out. And how do you sort it out? You sort it out by understanding the tattvas and how they appear the way they do, and how they are the way they really are. That is the distinction. That is how you try to sort them out. That is what they are mentioning. So, Sakti Avivyaktata Moksha. So, when with your own nature, your own power, you try to express, you find yourself, that itself is liberation. There's nothing called liberation that you do mantra, japa, and you get liberated. Mantra, japa, and all, and sadhanas and all, they take you to an intermediate stage of equanimity. They give you a lot of siddhis and power, but liberation only through self-awareness and enlightenment. And this prakashana, this swarupa prakashana that we're talking about, express yourself, find yourself, in order to make it easier, they tell us that don't you worry, this is only an imagination that you're fighting against. It's not a real bondage. If it's a real bondage, there's no liberation. Now, Srishti is what? Abarohana. The Lord, the transcendent Supreme Lord, has come down to this material reality level. Right? And then this is what is Srijana and Bandhana, bondage, creation. And what is Arohana? When the messy reality that God has created, when he ascends upwards, that means he abandons it. This game he abandons, returns to his meditation. That is Arohana. That is what we call Pralaya. That is what we call destruction. That is what we call the complete catastrophe. And then beyond that, complete silence. Everything goes into the causal mode. The effects vanish. It's like there was Big Bang, we all came into existence, the galaxies and all. Just imagine actually if you go back to that state, then through another Big Bang or something of that sort, we'll go back to a state of nescience, a state of complete silence, where there is no creation, there are no details. There's one unified reality. It's too early to presume. And in order to say that again and again, he's saying, Sa swayam kalpitakara vikalpatmaka karma vihi badnati atmanam eva iha swatantrat iti varnitam. Sa swayam, Sha Paramashivaha swayam, himself, kalpitakara, these are all imaginary, vikalpatmaka, lot of diversity, karma vihi, all the activities that happen here. Badnati, he binds us up. Atmanam, that self. The Lord, as if he's sort of putting himself in bondage in the form of these human beings. Eva iha. And why should he do it? Because he has sovereign power. Swatyantrat iti varnitam. Swatyantira mahima eva ayam devasya. Yad aso punaha. That Swatantra mahima, that greatness, that sovereignty, that supreme power that it has, the Pancha Shaktis. You have the Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, then Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. These are the 5 Shaktis. They become Pancha Kanchukas, 5 veils at the level of Maya. You have Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, that Swatantra Shakti is Ananda Shakti. The Chit Shakti, that pure consciousness, self-awareness, Ahanta, then Ananda Shakti, Swatantra Shakti. And then you have Ichha Shakti. He can do whatever he wants. And then he has Jnana Shakti, he's Sarvagya. And Kriya Shakti, he's Sarvakartika. And then everything gets inverted when it becomes in the level of Maya. Then you know the Jnana thing, he becomes more of a little thing. These Ichha becomes Raga, Ichha Shakti. He can do little things, and his Jnana becomes Vidya. And this Karma, this Kriya Shakti becomes Kala, a certain domain in which there is expertise. So these are what describes our level of reality, the human level of reality. Because of this Maya, there's this division between the Suddha Tattvas and all these Vikalpatmaka Vrittis which happen at the bottom. And we have discussed that. That is how he is saying, Badnati Atmanam Eva iha swatyantrat iti varnitam. Swatyantra mahima eva ayam devasya, of this Lord, the Supreme Lord. Yad aso punaha swam rupam parishuddham sat prasati api anutamayaha. It's all the time pure. This is the trickiest thing to accept. Lord Shiva is all the time pure. Parama Shiva Tattva, the Brahman, is all the time pure. There is no impurity in it. But it accepts that impurity. These are, I tell you, to make it easier for us to grasp, these are kind of ways of narrating something which is so difficult to make sense of, that they have created this style of writing, that Paramashiva is doing all this and he assumes that insufficiency because of his own wish, and then we are trapped. For lack of a good explanation, they are mentioning all it, but we just have to understand this aspect, that the details that we see are not fundamentally real, and we need to ascend and recognize our pure nature. And in order to make it easier for us, they have these explanations, that because of his own sovereign will, he has created all this. Don't ask why. That's not going to be helpful. You can spend millions of lives trying to understand why. Mama Maya Duratya, Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita. Do you want to reach the destination or waste time as to how you landed up here? No, I want to know how I want to land. How did I land up in this situation in my life? It's a wastage of your time. Do you want to return to where you were? Do you want to recover your energies, your purity, your happiness? Yes. Then come. If you want to analyze why you became like this, why aren't you happy, why people have troubled you, that's another ball game. It can take many lives and we may not find an answer. So this state of pasudasa or whatever, this bondage, is not fundamentally real. But that doesn't mean we'll not do any sadhana because we are essentially pure. No, we have to do sadhana because there are layers and layers and layers. It's like you recognize a virus, it has affected your computer, but you have to clean up. all the drives and all the folders and files you have to check. There's a lot of hard work, but you know the virus. It's a little like that. Because there is that Spandakarika in which there is a very powerful statement, Nasavasta yana Shivaha. You cannot talk about any level of existence which is essentially not Shivatmaka. Every state of existence is a reflection of, is pervaded by, is sustained and supported by that ultimate divine reality called Paramashiva. So everything is Paramashiva. The criminal, the angel, the devil, everyone is Paramashiva. Because of their own karmas and gunas and the way they are tarnished and the way they are trapped, they all look different. And all of them can recover their divine nature, depending on how they are doing their sadhana. So even though the Paramashiva Tattva is unrestricted, it presents itself as if it is restricted through our consciousness. It's unlimited, it presents itself as if it's limited through our activities, through our consciousness, through our ways of knowing things. So there is the statement, Yada Chidatma Parameshwaraha, when this Parameshwara Swaswatantriyat, of his own sovereignty, Avheda Vyaptim Nimatya, he has this unified, non-dual existence, pure existence, but then he subverts it, he sort of abandons it, puts it down. Bheda Vyaptim Avalambate, then he accepts this duality. One becomes many. That's how creation even in science, isn't it? So Veda Vyaptim Avalambate Tada Tadiya Icha Saktayaha Asankuchitapi. Bhagavan has this Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. All are unlimited, sovereign. Even though they are unlimited by nature, by their essential nature, they present themselves as if Sankocha Vatyoho Bhanti, they appear as if they are limited and restricted. Tadani mime cha ayam malavritaha sansari bhavati. At that stage, that consciousness, which is Paramashiva consciousness, has manifested as human consciousness or animal consciousness, it becomes malavrita. It appears as if it is covered with impurities, and it is a sansari. It has this chain of births and deaths, that sort of. So again, for example, apratihata swatyantir rupa ichha sakti, that willpower which has no limitation, which faces no obstacles, no limitations, sankuchita sati, then it appears as if it is restricted. Apurnamanyata rupam anabam malam. It accepts that feeling of imperfection. It is like a king's daughter with her friends. She was having a party and she consumed a bit of this cannabis or some kind of intoxicant, some alcohol, and this crying that I'm a poor girl. Am I going to leave tomorrow? All her friends are having fun. They're saying, do you know who you are? You're a daughter of a billionaire. He said, no, I'm a poor girl in that state. And this is crying. That's not a reality. But she's genuinely crying. He's saying, don't you know this? I'm helpless and this and that. And people know, yeah, you are very helpless. Why don't you sleep? You need some rest. They're tired of our games. But she's genuinely intoxicated, genuinely helpless. She's crying. You cannot say her pain is not real. Can you say a person who is in intoxication and he is bewailing loss of wealth or health, or although he may have that, you cannot say his helplessness is unreal because he feels it. His agony is not unreal because he feels it or she feels it. But it's actually not real because the moment he comes to sense, he'll not say what he's saying. And same is true about all of us. That is what he's mentioning. Now, there is a technical thing. Okay, I'll mention about a little abstract and technical thing. How does that happen actually? Shiva becomes Pashu. Pashupati becomes Pashu. How does that happen? What he's saying is that when Paramashiva is in deep meditation, okay, So that state is like Shunya, Paramashiva thing. Shunya is not emptiness here. It's that state of Parabhakavastha, that Paramashunya. Shunya means that absolutely there is no Dhyakara vritti, there is no Vigyakara vritti. I would know this. There is no Gaya Vastu, there is no Dhya Vastu. He's in himself, pure consciousness. Okay? And then what happens? There is two words which are used in technical. Okay, I'm just clarifying. These are a little technical. So he says tanmatra gochara and pratyodbhava. We are in deep meditation. Think about it. And then there is some sound. Okay, there is some sound. Somebody is knocking at your door. What did you hear? You heard some sound. And with that minor knock on the door, just small sound, it unravels the whole story. My daughter is back from the boarding school. Has she taken lunch? Did her mom bring her here? How did she come here? Did she come on her own? Is she in problem? So there is pratyodbhava. Pratyodbhava means there is some pratyaya, that there is something external to this consciousness. Meditation broken. There is something that it relates to. And then the whole reality emerges in your consciousness. That becomes the new reality for your mind. Meditation is gone. There is knock, that is the first contact with external reality. And then you are returning to a subjectivity which you had abandoned to be in meditation. It enlarges itself. That is the samsara. You go and open the door. Maybe your daughter hasn't come. It was a postman with a letter. Then you open it. You read it, but you are already externally oriented. Then you are into a different level of reality. So he's saying, for lack of good example, I'm just giving this, that Paramashiva, when he's perfect meditation, okay, and when this pratyaya udbhava happens, that means this consciousness, there is some vikalpatmaka vritti. That ahanta thing, there is something else that connects with it. There is an outwardness to it, outward orientation. There is pratyodbhava, means there is some duality. The mother of duality is born. The consciousness and its object. That is the first level of distinction. The pure consciousness and its object. Then it tries to describe it. With what? Words. And what is that? These are called the varnamatrikas. Okay. You remember that we had discussed that in the first chapter itself. Then, or to hear, or in her, with language we describe things. And that's why we have to understand, unravel the meaning of these varnas. Yeah, each of them is like a mother of a new concept, of a reality. When you understand how the pure consciousness, which was unified, gets divided and fragmented, who is at the root of this? These varnamatrikas. These are the Shaktis. And they are the cause of Jnanam Bandha, Aparipukva Jnanam Bandha, Sansarika Jnanam Bandha. How does that work out? How Jnana becomes bondage? Jnana happens with the help of knowledge, language. And therefore, we have understood the importance of understanding language. And language for us is not a secular thing. Language is very esoteric, very spiritual, because each of them, each Varnamatrika, Makali wears this 50 heads. Each of them represent one Varnamatrika, this whole samsara creation. So it's a very subtle reality that we are talking about. So it starts with when you have this nirvikalpa, self-awareness, and there is pratyodbhava, something else crops up. Then this whole creation unfolds, unravels. Okay? So that is how, and after this, Jnanam Bandha, we have understood as to how that happens. In the third sutra, he's saying Kaladinam Tattvanam Aviveko Maya. So Maya, we have used so many times. Somebody will definitely seek an explanation. Please explain to us what does it mean. And therefore he's saying Kaladinam Tattvanam Aviveko Maya. This Kala Sariram, you remember? Varnamatrikas and all. Not being able to understand this, like you have a picture in so many pixels, then you send that picture to a friend through WhatsApp. There is the number of pixels, the first picture and the second one, there's a big difference. You expand that picture, it'll get hazy. The quality, there's a big difference. Similarly, that Paramashiva Tattva, once it has manifested itself in a Jiva Bhava, or this restricted, limited mode, it has come into a limited, restricted mode. In there, he's saying, confusing these mode as the reality is a problem. That confusion, what is Maya, he's explaining it. Now, we'll look at this commentary in the original, and then we'll expand. Let me read it and explain what he's trying to say. He's saying, Nanu prakasangam jnanam na atmanah vetirakam vartate. The jnana, and the knower, and he's knowing. The knowledge, or the process of knowing, is not different from the one who knows. It is he who expresses itself. He's saying, Prakasamanam, nanu prakasakam jnanam na atmanah vetirakam. There can be no jnana without, how can you say, Chaitanyam Atma, you said jnanam bandha. But jnana cannot exist without the Atma, and it's no different from it. He's saying, Vyatiriktam vartate, sarva prakashyam vedyam. Whatever is prakasya, that means whatever is lit up, whatever is expressed, vedyam, whatever is known, vastu jatam, jnana prakasakam asti, tatha cha uktam. He's saying, look, they are one and the same thing. The knower and the known are one and the same thing. What is he saying there? Prakasamana na prithak prakashat, nacho prakasha prithak vimarshat. Whatever is lit up is not different from the light. Whatever is lit up is not different from the light. The jnana is prakashaka here, and it is not. Now you have to understand one small thing here. Jnana is knowledge of something. That is bondage. Jnana is pure. Self-awareness is not bondage. That is freedom in not self. What he's trying to say here is this: Prakasamanam na prithak prakashat, na cha prakasha na prithak vimarshat, nanya vimorsha ahamiti swarupad, aham swarupasmi chideka rupaha. I know something. Whatever I know is not different from me, and that ahanta that I have is not different from my swarupa, and that I am chideka rasham, sachidananda swarupam, if I say. So that is what the Shastra says. How come when Shastra says, and when that is my essential nature, how I can be trapped in bondage? That is the question, and it's explaining it. Evam cha prakase mane paramartha bhano. By this, this paramartha bhanu is the sun of awareness, that spiritual, that great, the supreme consciousness, which is expressed as light. Nasyati avidati mere samasti. All kinds of ignorance and darkness are dispelled, are washed away, are removed. Tada buddha nirmala drishtyopi kinchit na paschati bhava papancham. Now they are clear-eyed. The jnani is sitting clear-eyed, but he cannot see any samsara. It's like, there are two managers. One manager comes in, he finds problems with all staff. He finds a lot of problems with the department and everything. And then another manager comes in, yeah, it's perfect. Are you ready to take up the job? Yes. And he starts performing. The difference being, the other one has certain image of the insufficiency of all the people. He is a cribbing type. He is not somebody who is ready to perform. Similarly, when our consciousness is cleaned up, is lit up with the self-awareness, you don't see samsara. doesn't mean you will not see what you are seeing with your naked eyes. Here, you are not perturbed by the samsara. It becomes like Shakshi Chaitanya, you will become a Sita Pragya. He's saying this. Bhava Prapancham, Jnanam no bhavatu bhinnam. Your jnana, your awareness is not different from you. Because what do you mean by you? That Chaitanya Swarupa. I and my Chaitanya Swarupa, this kind of duality is the mother of all problems. Because you have ahankara underlining your consciousness. That's the problem. There is a tail there. You remove that, then there is pure consciousness. Jnanam na bhavato bhinnam jnam jnanat prithak nahi. And then what do you know? What do you know? You know about the world. No, that is not jnana. That is bandhaka. That is bondage. When you know only yourself, that pure knowledge, you are in the perfect state of meditation. Ato no tu itarat kinchit tasmad bhedo navastava. Therefore, what do you mean by this bheda? It's not vastavika. It's not really. It's not really any duality. This is an appearance of duality. This is not a real duality. The samsara and all these phenomenal realities will be there, but they are not fundamentally real. That is what the point that he is trying to make. Okay, and then he's saying in the commentary, Ityadi vachananusaram jnanam prakasamayam eva. Therefore, jnanam bandha, how can you say? This is prakasamaya, chaitanya matma. That is the same thing that you are saying. Tathacha kathamasya bandha rupatvam iti chet. Therefore, there is a student is saying, why are you saying that we are in bondage? There is enough statements to say that we are all kind of jnana swarup only. He said, no, don't say this. Yataha parameshwara prasadat yadi evam prati vijnayeta. Yeah, you are free. It's like you have a lot of money. Somebody is son of a very rich man, but he doesn't have that will with him. After his father passes away, he doesn't have access to any of his money. Similarly, you have a lot of money in your bank account, cryptocurrency or anything. You don't remember the password. What happens to you? It doesn't belong to you because you don't know the password. Maybe nobody else can take that money. Nobody knows the password, but you cannot access it. Therefore, he's saying, Parameshwara prasadat yadi evam prativijnayata. Yes, that is true. It is true that you are ever free. It is true that your consciousness itself is jnana and jnana. There is no tripati veda. Knowledge, knower, and known. That distinction is not there. It's pure consciousness. Provided you remember your swarupa. Provided you have that password. And if you don't have password, which is given by grace of God, then you are trapped here. If you don't have that password, Yadatu Parameshwara Maya Sakti Vasha, because of his magical powers, Na evam prativijna bhavati, when you are not being able to remember this, Tadatu Tasya Bandharupatvam Satakrutanapi Na Nivaritum Sit Sakyaha. You might do a lot of yakyas, build a lot of houses, get a lot of money, be a king, be a billionaire. But you can never ever realize that swarup of yours. You'll be in bondage. Only with God's grace, if we can reach that state of awareness, then we are free. If we don't have that grace of God, I'm sorry. You don't have the password. Money is not yours. I will stop here and we'll positively meet on Thursday and we'll take forward this discussion. Any questions? We have 1 or 2 minutes. Any questions? Or we'll do the Santi Mantra?
Santi Mantra.
Yeah. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavanto Punaha Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyoma Vadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. See you on Thursday. Until then, thank you.
Pranam, Sanjay.